This is just a sound test. Test one, two, three. Sound test one, two, three. Sound test one, two, three. Just checking the sound. Sound test one, two, three. And it's nice and clear, yeah? Okay. Everyone, happy Sunday morning if you are in Brisbane, Australia. If you're in Europe or the USA and Canada, happy Saturday afternoon or evening. So this is one of our first new editions that we're going to do is every Sunday we're going to be doing what we call our Sunday Fun Day. It gives you an opportunity if you are in our community that you can ask questions, you can drop questions in, and it gives you a great chance to get that information. So we've had quite a few questions come in from within our community, and if anyone is interested in joining our community or wants to know more about it, basically our Pro Player Pathway online community and app is an all-in-one place for coaches, players, and parents. Essentially, it was designed for players who wanted to make it as a pro, or for players, boys and girls, maybe mums and dads out there whose son and daughter just aspires to maybe get a little bit better. You want to get a little bit more confidence in your game, then this is the whole reason why we've set up and we've designed this Pro Player Pathway community. Guys, for as little as $1.23 a day. You can join me online every day. You can drop in questions. There's over $55,000 worth of programs. And also, it will give you access to me as not only a UEFA player agent, but it will also give you access to me as one of the highest qualified coaches on the planet under UEFA. And also, if you're a member of our community and you've been with us for 12 months or longer, you can trigger free access to trials to the UK and Europe. So if this sounds something of interest to you, if you're a mum and dad sat there and you're thinking, "Do you know what? I'd love to give me son and daughter a little bit of a help. I'd love them to get a bit more confidence in the game. We'd be quite keen to help them get a scholarship to a private school. We'd like to get them to a college or a D1 college in the USA. Or the big, big dream, my son and daughter, I'd love to help them to get to a club like Liverpool, Barcelona, Real Madrid, Manchester City, Manchester United, one of the big clubs. We can help you with that, and all for the cost of $1.23 a day. Guys, it's $37 to join our community. If you're interested in joining, guys, we've got it in the show notes below. It's school.com/pro player pathway. Now, enough of me chatting and talking about the community. We now need to get into the questions. So, some of the questions that are being dropped in our community, and once you're a member of our community, you can drop questions in there on a daily basis, and we will create these videos for you. And it's going to give you a big helping hand on understanding and navigating your way through football. So, whether you are wanting to help your son and daughter make it to one of the top clubs in Europe, or you just want to help to get them a little bit better, or maybe some of the coaching that you're getting at your local club level, maybe you're based in, I don't know, North Carolina in the USA, and maybe you just want a little bit more professional coaching or you want a little bit more professional advice. I can give you that advice and I can help you with this in this question time. So, first question that we got in was, how does a player work out which agency is for them? Okay. Now, this question comes in from Josip Zilic in Geelong in Melbourne. So, a big thank you, Josip, for that question. Now, for me, I think what Josip's meaning is once your son and daughter or you as a player get to around the age of maybe 16 or 18 and you're about to sign your first pro contract, how do you decide which player agent or agency is going to be for you? First couple of things I would always say on this one would be, how much effort and time has this particular agency put in on the run up to you making it as a player? So if you've been working with, say, an agent or an agency that's helped you for the last 4 to 5 years and have been part of your journey, then for me, it's a no-brainer. Like, you should be going with that particular agent. Now, there's a lot of conversation, I would say, out there where people say you need to be with an agent who's a lawyer because they know how to deal with contracts. Not necessarily. Like, going back 20 years ago, there was a spate of lawyers and ex-lawyers who come into the football world as agents because they knew how to legally prepare documents and navigate them for a sports-based world. But I think it's taken 20 years for the industry to kick on and actually go, yeah, there's a lot of great agents out there who are lawyers, but also, do they have the football knowledge and do they have that understanding? So, going back to Joseph's question, I think if you've worked with someone and you've been with that person for many years, then that's a great thing. If you're new to being represented by an agent and your career's just gone bang, and all of a sudden you've got 4 or 5 agents knocking down the door, there's a couple of ways you can do it. As an agent myself, I'm a little bit of an agent with a difference. I actually don't charge any percentage to represent players. And the reason why I don't do that is my background has predominantly been in youth development, and I know how to develop superstars. So from a 5-year-old all the way through to 18, I can turn any player into a superstar. So one of the areas you could do, if you wanted to work out who is the best agent and you wanted to have that discussion, you could join me on the community. You could reach out to me. We could book you in for an appointment and we could actually look at the pros and cons. And the best way to attack a set of agents who are trying to get you to sign the contracts with them would be to literally do a list of what are all the pros, what are all the cons. Now, sometimes you've got to be careful as well in this area because you might think one of the cons for one of the agents is because they want 15% of your salary, where some of the other agents only want 5%. But what you've got to do is you've got to look at things like market success. How good is that agent at actually drawing out funding, sponsorships? Because we all know in football, your career could be really short. Whilst you're in the limelight and you're getting the good deals and there's good sponsorship money around, you want an agent who's going to fight for you in every corner, but also, and it's not everything, but it is important to make sure that you get your worth as well and you get financially what's owed to you for all of your time and effort of getting to the point where you're at in your career. So you've got to be careful because sometimes it might be appealing that this particular agent in the USA only wants 5% of his salary. But This agent wants 15%, which sounds a lot, but this agent might be able to get you $10 million a year in sponsorship, where this agent over here might struggle to get you 500,000. So 85% of 10 million is a lot more than 95% of 500,000. So the best thing to do on this one, guys, would be to do a pros and cons list of every agent and actually look at their past experiences. Ask them, who do you represent? Who are you currently looking after? What are some of your greatest success stories on sponsorship deals? And that will enable you to actually then build a list. But again, guys, if you want to, you can reach out to me because I'm an agent with a difference. I don't charge a percentage. I literally just need people, coaches, players, mums and dads. Join our community, be in our community, and I'm here to answer all of your questions and to help you. And if you've got a really pinnacle decision to make in your career, you can book an appointment in with me for a private one-on-one Zoom with you, your mum, your dad, whoever it may be, certain family members, and we can get that organized for you. Great question, Joseph. I love that one. That's a great one to start on. Now, how does an agent decide which club or competition to aim for regarding their clients? So, this is another great question that's coming from Joseph as well. So, for this one, it's sort of actually what we call self discovery. So, I've just been very, very fortunate to spend an amazing, probably best part of 12 months in 2024 working with UEFA and Steph and the team. A big hi to Steph and the team at UEFA. One of the things that we got taught by Steph and the team in the classrooms and when we were going through our player agency course last year was that it's about actually identifying what does the player want. It's all good and well as an agent if I just want to get 10% off this player because Manchester City have made an offer and it's going to make me the best money. But again, this is one of the things where it's changed in the agent world. It's not about the money anymore. If you look after your player and if you look after your player's interests, the money's going to come anyway. And this is where a lot of agents go wrong. They're too busy trying to force through deals with bigger clubs who are going to offer more money. But in turn, that particular player mightn't want to play in England. That player mightn't fancy the weather in England. The player that you're representing might actually fancy Spain, but that means to go to Spain, they might actually to gain a little bit of extra lifestyle with the sunshine and the weather. It might mean they lose a bit of money. So to answer that question, it's a great one. I think if you're a really, really good agent, you actually identify what your player actually wants and what they would like and what's their big dream and what's their big vision. And again, this is one of the things that we can help through our school community on the Pro Player Pathway. We can answer and help you and guide you with some of these decisions. And one of the big things that we're bringing to the platform as well, not only is this platform for coaches, it's also for players, it's also for mums and dads, but we're actually going to be bringing player agents to the platform as well, which is going to give you an opportunity to showcase your talents, but it's going to be done a little bit different. It's not going to be player agents with inside our community, and then they can just directly message players when they want. The point of difference we're going to have is we're going to allow agents who want to have a look at players, they're going to be able to bring players to our platform. We'll then look at you as players. And then once we've looked at you as players over a 12, 2 year, 4 year journey, then we'll go back to those particular agents and go, look, you brought Sarah onto our platform. She's gone through our course over the last 12 months. She's scoring really high. We would love to open up a trial opportunity for her at Liverpool Football Club. Once we open up that opportunity, if she's successful, because you brought her to the platform, can you now represent her? And that agent's going to say yes. And also, you should want to go with that agent because that particular agent give you the opportunity to join me on the Pro Player Pathway community. So we're going to change the landscape of football forever. I've likened this community and this new app like this is the Uber moment of the football world. We're bringing together something that people have never been able to have access to before. Highest qualified coaches on the planet, player agents, access to actual real training and a real pathway that will actually develop you and actually turn you in to a football superstar. But do you just get that for turning up once or twice a week and practicing? No, it's a lot of hard work. So another great question, Joseph. Now, final one from Joseph. What are the top three aspects missing in individual player development in countries like Australia, the USA, Canada, Middle East? A fantastic question. So, some of the aspects that are missing, and this is my personal opinion, and for anyone who doesn't know me, my name's Raymond Wood. I've worked in the pro game of football for over 20 years. I've worked for teams like Liverpool, Leicester City, Paris Saint-Germain. I've worked for coaches like Carlo Ancelotti. I was very, very fortunate. I worked on a super project with the Premier League called the EPPP and the English Football Association, where we recategorized all of the academy and the academy system. And the reason why we done this, it was basically in a nutshell to produce more talented superstar for both the women's and the men's England teams. Over that period, the English FA and the Premier League have spent £1.6 billion, and I was very fortunate to work on that project. So if anyone asks, well, do you actually really know what you're talking about, Ray? You're just an agent. No, I'm not just an agent. I was a coach and I had a youth phase for over 20 years. So I actually understand a lot about development and what's missing. Now, we've got to be careful, especially countries like Australia and the USA. This is what I always say. A lot of people seem to love attacking Australia and the USA when you're inside the countries. And admittedly, I've been a little bit one of these over the years, but I've really took a step back as I've got a bit older and a bit wiser. And you've actually got to compare apples with apples. And what I mean by that is that if we're going to compare Australia with the UK or the USA with the UK, football or soccer as we call it in Australia or the USA, it's probably in Australia, football is 30 years old at the most, if we're really, really honest. Now, I know there's going to be some people going, oh, no, we've got a club in Sydney and it's been there since 1958. No, no, no. Respectfully, I think from having enough clubs spread around the country and the quality and the level and the amount of players participating, I think it's been taken as a serious sport for about 30 years in Australia. Similar in the USA, maybe about 40 years. The women's game's always been huge there. The problem in England is that there is being football played at a very high level for over 130, 140 years. So that's what you're up against. Now, some of the aspects that for me are missing, they don't look at the players holistically enough. They don't look at players individually. So one of the first key aspects that for me is missing is individual driven work. Now, I guarantee there's going to be people sat there and they'll get defensive over this, especially people potentially within the Football Federation Australia and at state federations, Football Queensland, but they'll go, no, well, we do individual stuff. We get them to learn the techniques and we encourage our coaches to do 20 minutes a day of doing individual one ball for every player at the feet. No, 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 no. We're talking another level. We're talking individualized programs. And I'm going to the level of getting a match analysis. And again, not for a team, but for a player and individually analyzing that one player. Now, if anyone is watching this and you've worked in the academy systems in the UK and in England specifically, you know, as well as I know, that one match analysis from one player is enough to build out a development plan for 2.5 years. And not only is it enough to build out a development plan for 2.5 years, it's enough for a player to go away on their own. And when they're not in the club environment, to actually work on these key areas that we draw out. So I'll give you a very quick example. On our program, the Pro Player Pathway, we do a match analysis for our players on our full-time program. It gets sent off to Portugal. When it then comes back, what we then do is we analyze the game and reanalyze over the top. We then assign it to a coach in England. So this coach could be working at one of the big clubs. That coach will analyze the game, and we're looking for five what we call KPIs or indicators, which are our objectives. So we actually draw out for each player five key areas that they're really struggling in. We then go a little bit deeper into that. We then actually drive out what is the most important objective that that player's got to work on straight away. And it might be scanning, so looking over your shoulders, but it's not just a case of, oh, just tell your player to look over the shoulder. There's a lot of detail and work that goes in. And anyone who's in our community for $37 a month, you can go into the app and it's in there and you can actually have a look. There's an overview for match analysis. We give you an example. Also, in the next week, we're going to be dropping in an actual live match analysis with a player, with a coach in England. Okay. I can't mention any names. And this player, after this match analysis, 18 months later, has gone on to sign for one of the biggest clubs on the planet. So we're going to share that with you. So that's one of the first things I say that we're missing, Joseph. So that's that key one for me is that individual uh, sort of teachings that need to go on, and it needs to be looked at from a really, really high level. Now, I know a lot of clubs and a lot of people out there, and maybe even like people at the federation will go, but we can't afford to get a match analysis done. And it's like, well, wait there. If you've got a junior at your club and that junior you want to develop into a superstar and you're really committed to that player, and that mum and dad is paying your club two, three, $4,000 a year, and you know that player is likely to be at your club for the next 10 years. So we could be looking at 20, 30, $40,000. Wouldn't you invest $1,000 of that to drive out some real development tools on how to develop that player? And then once you've done that, that mum and dad are so appeased and are so happy because they know that what their son and daughter's following is actually not only the right information, but it's actually going to help them and make them get better. And this is my big gripe with clubs, not just in Australia, but in the USA, is that they're all very good and well, taking $3,000-4,000 a year in NPL and SAC fees. But then those same kids and families who pay you the money, you then quite happily make them retrial it in the summer period because you want to see if there's anyone better around the corner. And I see this go on all the time. You've got 11 and 12-year-olds who trial at the age of 9 or 10 to come into SAP, but then you're expecting them to retrial a year later. It blows my mind. If we're about development, we're not really truly about development if we're asking kids to retrial every year. And yet, admittedly, I know there's some kids who don't, but you instantly just pick the kids who are currently the best now, not the kids who are going to be the best in the future. Now, there's kids who are getting locked in for every year because they're the bigger kid physically. And some kids are like that when they get to 10 and 11. They're bigger than most kids at their age because they've gone through the change or puberty a little bit earlier than the other kids. And this is what really, really riles me at the moment is that we've got to get this fixed. So when we say we do individually develop our players in Australia or the USA, I'm going to be honest with you and point blank, we don't. As a whole, we do not. Some clubs are better than others. Some academies are better than others. And I'll be honest, a lot of the private academies out there are doing amazing work. And the quicker we collab with academies and schools and clubs and everyone gets together, it's going to be better for everyone. And in turn, it's going to be better for the most important person, and that is the player themselves. One of the other aspects I think that's missing, I think, is we haven't brought our game up in Australia and even to a point in the USA to the level that it should be at. And I'm on about things like some of the things that we do is DNA testing. We actually take a DNA test from players, and it's to help them with the nutrition because one of the analogies I use a lot, if you've been in my rooms at my events, is that if you've got a petrol car and you put diesel in it, it's not going to work properly. It's exactly the same, and it kills me. You see, there's guys at the moment, I see them in Brisbane where I'm based, and they give some great information about nutrition on some of our Facebook posts. But again, they're not looking at the actual real high level detail, and it doesn't cost a lot of money to do this. And you get these nutritionists online saying, you know, you don't want to be eating McDonald's and you don't want to be having a can of Coke and you want to be eating, you know, a banana before training. Guys, that's coming from the 1980s. We know that. Everyone knows you shouldn't be eating McDonald's before a game of football. And everyone knows there's a good chance that, yeah, a banana is a good source of probably carbohydrates before a game. But guys, can we actually lose the information from 1984 and actually get up to a higher level? So this is one of the other aspects, and I'm going to give you an example. Do you know a simple DNA test costs around $300 to $400, and that will actually map out every single food, drink, home products, things like fibers, hairs, products that people touch on a daily basis will actually tell you as a player what you can and can't eat and what you shouldn't eat and what actually forms as an intolerance in your system. And when you're actually aware of this and you can see that if, for example, you were to eat bread and on your DNA test it comes back that there's certain breads that cause an intolerance, not only is it messing with your system, but also it's actually going to cause you injuries because it's causing inflammation in your system. So that's probably the second aspect that's missing. Probably the final one, and this is going to be quite controversial again for some people, but I don't care because my focus is always about what is in the interest of the player. And if it's not in the interest of the player, then we don't do it. I want to challenge coaches out there. If you love Australia and you're Australian and you want to offer your players the best opportunity, do me a favor, buy a ticket, go to Europe, go and volunteer to work at a club for 6 to 12 months, and go and sign up to one of the UEFA coaching courses and go and get a UEFA coaching certificate. Now, if you've done your AFCB license or A license, I've seen them and I've been on them, and the courses are, I'm going to be honest, they're okay. But if we're going to compare apples with apples and you're a coach and you want to develop the best players, you need to go and broaden your horizons. Now, you might say, well, I can't afford to go over to England for 6 months. Well, why not? When I was in my mid to late 20s, I was married. I had a daughter who was two, and I packed up and sold everything. And I went back to Europe to finish my badges. I was working for less than 40, I was working for less than 30,000 Australian dollars a year working back in England at the time. And I went back for one reason and one mission was to upskill myself, get all the qualifications I possibly could, to get as much experience as I could. So then when I come back to Australia, I was fully armed up and fully guns ready to educate not only players, coaches, and clubs, but also to try and affect the industry and send ripples. And that's what I'm doing at the moment. I've been down that journey for 20 years. And if you really want to go and sort of help any sort of player, for me, go overseas, guys, go to Europe, go to South America, go to Brazil, go to Argentina, go to Colombia. It's happening all around the world. South America and Europe is a hub. You're going to see the passion. You're going to see the level that the coaches go to. So for me, they're those three aspects. Again, Joseph, amazing question. Now I've got to cut quite a few questions in. I'm going to get to another question now. And one of the big things is we get a lot of position specific questions. So I'm gonna ask, or I'm gonna read out this next question that we got in the community. Now, what is the role of the agent and what is the compulsory food for the players? So this was from Fred Sashone and he's on our community. So what is compulsory food for players? I've just answered that one basically, Fred. So what's compulsory food for you? Everyone is different on an individual basis. So you need to get a DNA test done. If you're on our full-time program, you get the DNA test done for free. If you're not on our full-time program, you don't have to come through us as well. If you just Google it, you can actually find your own one. But I'm going to be honest with you, we've gone through the mill and we've gone through about 20 different companies. We've checked the results. We've checked how reliable the results are. We've also checked on things like your data because it's your DNA. Is it safe? Is it not safe? We've actually got a laboratory and a company we work with who are based in Melbourne, and they're currently doing all of our DNA tests at the moment. So if you want to know what foods are best for you, quite simply, the best thing you can do is, and what I'll do for everyone in the show notes, if I'm able to, I'll drop an image or a screenshot in of one of the slides from my results. And everything in black is everything I can eat, and everything in red is stuff that I'm not meant to eat. Otherwise, it causes a really bad intolerance on my system. So, back to the first question from Fred, what is the role of the agent? Again, I think I've covered a little bit of this in Joseph's answers this morning and his questions, sorry. But the role of the agent is for me, again, it's about the number one. It's about looking after you as the player. And I'm not just on about making you the most money. Again, that's something that was in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s. Players just wanted to get their agent. Look, just focus on get me as much money as you can get me and don't worry about nothing else. No. Some of the things that we got trained on, and we've been on the most amazing course last year with UEFA to pass out as an agent. And one of the heads of the project, there was a guy called Steph, and they actually taught us that it's no different when you develop a player. The best players get developed off the pitch first before we put them on the pitch. It's the same with agents. You should be working with your players off the pitch as much as possible. And I'm talking not just finances. I'm talking about like what is your network like? What's your family like? What's your mum and dad like? What's your friends network like? Have you got good friends? Are you in a good friendship circle? As an agent, you've got a duty to really be invested in your player. And I do with all of my players. I'm super invested in them. Like, as everyone knows, we've got quite a few players in the UK and Europe playing professionally at the moment. And you've got to want to know on a daily basis what's going on in their lives and are they okay? Also, mentally, you'd be smart as an agent to do a workshop with your player once a fortnight, once a month, and just do a Zoom call with them, even if you're not with them face to face. And they might think it's a bit of a gimmick, but it's not. Actually, just take them through. Like we've got on our community, and it's completely free to access, mental strength training program. And this is for football, and it's for players aged 5 all the way through to open age. If you're an agent, if you're a coach, and you want to do a bit of work with some of your players, join the community for $37 a month. There's a $20,000 mental strength training program that I learned and I developed and designed from my time when I worked with Premier League superstars in the Premier League. It's phenomenal. So for me, that's some of the roles of the agents is actually looking out for your player, having a real interest in their lives. What do they like to do? Also, what do they like to do on a personal level? And also, one of the biggest teachings that Steph taught me at UEFA last year, and it was phenomenal. And I never ever really thought of it, but actually start preparing your player for what's going to happen at the end of football. The amount of players I've seen over the years, especially from around about 2002 onwards, when I worked at some of the biggest clubs, these players who were earning 40, 50, 60, 100,000 euros a week, they get to the end of the career and bang, that salary stops coming in. But the problem is that lifestyle still stays up there and it's going to come down pretty quickly. And I've seen it. Players are still out spending 20, 30, 40,000 pound a week. But when they're not getting £100,000 salary coming in a week, all of a sudden, then money starts to deplete. Then, unfortunately, and I've seen it a lot, and it doesn't happen with everyone, but with a lot, things like drinking comes in, alcohol, failed marriages, affairs, and all of a sudden, someone who's on this pinnacle in the career, all of a sudden, they just fall off the side of a cliff. So the best one that I heard with the 33 other agents I was spent literally most of 2024 with was one of the agents said, you've got to future-proof your player. And what that means is preparing them financially. Have they got investments? Start talking to them, even if they're 25. In 10, 12 years' time, or touch wood, you don't, but if you get an injury and you can't play again, what are you going to do? What are your interests? Would you like to stay in football? Would you like to become a coach? Would you like to become a pundit? Do you want to be an investor? Do you want to be like David Beckham? Do you want to just go in your backyard every day and talk to your chickens and feed your chickens? Life can be really, really simple, but if you don't plan it and you don't start thinking about these things, all of a sudden it's like hitting a brick wall and that realization comes to it, and then you're like, oh, I don't know what to do. And unfortunately, it's really, really sad. I've seen it a lot in the football world. A lot of people turn to alcohol and it spirals very, 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 very quickly. So, great question, Fred. That's one of the best questions we've had. And hopefully that answers your question about what is the role of the agent. So one of the next ones that we got was from Alex Alves. Alex, a big thank you again. Another member in our community. Remember, guys, if you're not in our community, you can't pop in these questions. It's only for people in our community. Again, go to school.com/pro player pathway. $1.23 a day, and you can get these. This is one of the big benefits of being on our program. Also, if you have a look in the notes below, the links there. Now, Alex asked me a question. It's quite a long question. I'll read it out. It will be great to know some of the insights of what youth players go through every week at a top academy, whether it's Steven Gerrard's academy in Liverpool, it's Chelsea Football Club, or it's Paris Saint-Germain. What are the best ways to learn about different football tactics and football smarts to become an intelligent football player? Also, what key attributes do professional scouts look for in footballers? Okay, so quite a few questions within that one question. Some of the insights that youth players go through. So, one of the things that we've covered, and you get this information in our community again, is that a lot of players want to play 20 hours a week, but they don't know if they should do that. At the top levels in the academies, we actually know the magic number of hours that you should be doing. Okay. And I'm going to share one of the big secrets to you. And it's one of the big Premier League secrets that a lot of clubs and academies don't share and want to share. But basically, you should be doing what's called the plus 130. So if your son and daughter's 11 years of age, you should be doing 12 hours a week of football. However, I'm going to break it down a bit more than that in a moment. If your son and daughter's 14, they should be doing around about 15 hours. Now, once you get to 16, it does cap out at 17 hours. You never go past that magic number of 17. But of your set amount of hours, so if you're nine, you should be doing 10 hours a week. 7 hours should be specific to football, and 3 hours should be non-specific. So things like going on a recovery run, going on a bike ride, going for a swim, shooting some hoops in the yard with mum and dad. It could be anything like that. Some of the other things that academy players go through, not only working out how many hours a week they need to do, but they do things like technical work, individual technical work. They'll do one-on-one match analysis with objective building. One of the big things that we discovered in 2010 and 11 in the Premier League was once we started to link the top academies with the schooling system, and we drew out what was called ILPs and what I now call match objectives or objectives. We really want every player to have an individual focus, especially the younger players, but it's even so important for an older player. You should be working on your individual aspects. It's nice to go and work in a team and work on a shape. But as an example, this is one of the things that I see in Australia. Kids at the ages of 11 and 12 and 13, once they start to get to full pitches, the focus of the whole week and the weekend is all about a team focus. It blows my mind. It's like, this kid only started to learn to run properly at 11 and 12, and some kids still can't run properly at 13. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I just mean they don't have the proper running patterns on how to run correctly. They don't know how to do arm to cheek. They don't know the running stride. They don't know what part of the foot to push off on. But then we're expecting kids at 11 and 12 and 13 to go in and play team shape, play 4-3-3. And with all due respect, Johnny, who plays right back, can't even hit a 20-yard ball across the pitch. So what they work on in the academy systems in the UK and in England specifically is that individual development. And for me, it's why England has got the best league on the planet. It's why they're now developing the best players. And they really, really go into that individual focus. So, Fred, we spoke about it earlier on in this little episode, that individual work, individualized DNA test, match analysis. This is the way to go because you're going to develop into an absolute superstar. Now, very quickly, Fred, the last one you asked was what are the key attributes to professional scouts look for in football players? I'm going to tell you, one of the big things that a lot of scouts tend to look for is they go down to a game, they tend to look for whoever the strongest player is, and they'll have a punt at that player and hope it comes off. And that still happens 99% of the time. The other end is a lot of players wait, a lot of agents wait until a player gets signed by a club. So let's say there's a player signing for Barcelona and it's about to happen, and agents recognize that this player hasn't got an agent. They all start to scurry pretty quickly to sign a player. So they're relying on the club to do their due diligence. And then when they're about to sign a player, agents will try and jump in what we would call at the end of the deal to try and sign them. And that's the problem in general, I think, with the industry and football and with agents. And what we're trying to do with our landscape is we're changing it. We're actually saying, if you want to work with a player agent, you can now. You can reach out to one of our partnered agents. They'll recommend you to our platform. Once you're on our platform, that agent's brought you to our platform. So once you get better, they are going to represent you and they'll make you an offer. But what we then do is we would then work with you over a 12, 24, 48-month period within the community where we develop you individually, working on those individual areas like match analysis, DNA testing, GPS trackers, which is another one that we provide for all the players for free. So we can gather all your stats and data, sprints, distance covered. So there's some of the attributes that we're looking at because we're an agency with a difference. Again, we're agents that don't actually take a percentage of future earnings. We liken ourselves to what we call a bridge. We're building a bridge for football players and mums and dads. So you've got little Johnny's at the beginning of the bridge here, or Sarah, and she'd like to maybe play professional football, but she just wants to work on her confidence and get better. This child is never going to get looked at by an agent because, with all due respect, the agents don't have the time to look at every single kid in their area at one time. It's impossible. So what we've done is we've said, right, okay, we'll get the agents over here. We've got the players who maybe want to go pro, and we build this bridge. And this bridge is called the Pro Player Pathway. And we bring you on, and we bring the agent to meet you, and you shake hands, and then the agent goes to the other side of the bridge, and then you work away across the bridge, which is the Pro Player Pathway. Now, if you get to the end of the bridge, we manage and track all of your individual stats. Once you get to that level, we then hand you back to that agent and go, look, this agent brought you to the platform in the first place. Now, maybe consider signing with this agent. And that agent's happy because if they bring 10,000 players to the platform, there's going to be maybe 1,000 who are going to follow it all the way through. Now, you might say, well, what happens if my son and daughter decides at any point they don't want to play pro football and they just want to go to a college in the US on a D1 college scholarship? We can help you with that. Or you know, or you're not sure if your son and daughter's tracking, we'll tell you all this information. We're tracking the data and the stats within the community constantly. Okay. So that was a great couple of questions, Fred. Thank you for that. Now we're nearly coming to the end, guys, and I know I haven't got through all the questions. Uh, Final question, and I will get to the other questions a little bit later on. I will do another live today. I want to get these other questions done. So what we will is we'll probably schedule another live for about 12 o'clock Brisbane time today. And if you can't tune in, it will be in this YouTube recorded in there for you. Now, final question, Gary Smith. What age should you start looking at focusing on specific positions? So I'll tell you from my background and in England in the Premier League, we started doing position specific work from the ages of 10 and 11. Okay. And it's not that we're actually focusing on, I'll give you an example. Luke Thomas, who I worked at Leicester City, and he's played in the Premier League, he was always pigeonholed to play as probably a fullback or a holding mid. We always looked at him, and a lot of the coaches at the club always fancied him as a holding mid. I was always really honest, and I always thought his position was always going to be a left back, and he was going to be a fullback because he was fast, great feet. He could turn really quickly, and I just thought he offered too much not to be. And also being a left-sided player, we developed him on that left side really, really well. His right foot was wicked as well. We started doing that position specific work with him at the ages of 10 and 11. But did he actually really hone into that position fully at that age? I'll be honest, in England we do. And this is the big problem. I think we get caught up in Australia and the USA saying, oh, no, you want to play in four positions until you're 14 and then you work it out. Nah, not for me. From the ages of 4 and 5, play a couple of sports, get a love for a couple of sports, enjoy yourself and have fun. By the ages of 7 and 8, you should be really honing in on one particular sport. It's okay to have a couple of secondary sports off to the side, but you should be spending 60, 70% of your time in a particular sport. Once you're 9 and 10, you should be realizing I'm going to be a keeper, I'm going to be a defender of some sort, midfielder or an attacking player, and then start honing in on that position and start working in that position. Because if you start honing in at 10 and 11, by the time you're 21, 22, you've had 10, 11 years of really, really trying to critique that position. You're going to be a hell of a player, especially, for players who are at pro academies. You're gonna make it as a pro. It's a given. The problem you've got is if you're at a club that doesn't have a full-time academy or it's not overly professional, how do you do it? Well, again, this is why we built the school community. School.com/pro player pathway. It's in the notes below. This is to help the boys and girls who want to make it as a pro. They want to get on the pathway. And I'm going to be honest, some players get on the community and they get on the program and they actually realize it's actually not for me because it is too hard. There is too much work. I don't want to do 12 hours a week of football, and that's great. But the beauty of this community is for the mums and dads. It costs $37 a month. You can unsubscribe at any point. You don't have to be locked in. And this is a great way because one of the big things that kills me is that mums and dads spend, not at all, but at some clubs, three, four, $5,000 to go to a club, an NPL or a SAP team, and then halfway through the season, the kid's just not cut out for NPL or SAP, and they just don't really want that level. The beauty of our community is all you're going to lose is $37. So it enables mums and dads to actually have a deep dive within the community to see what it is you actually need to do to make it as a pro. So, guys, look, I hope that answers some of your questions. A big thank you to Gary Smith for that question. A big thank you to Fred. A big thank you to Josip as well, my friends Anne and Geelong. Now, we've still got a lot of questions to come in. We've got David, we've got Rick Fraser, Matthew Campbell, we've also got Theo and Nancy Murphy. I promise you guys, I'm going to do another video today because I love doing this. I love helping people in my community. I love helping the players and families on my app, but also if you're not on our community, I love to share. And it's all about me giving everything I've got in here. And I don't claim to know everything, but if there's something I don't know, I will go and find it for you and I'll bring it back to this table and I'll share it with you. So big thank you for joining us, guys. And I look forward to speaking to you all on our next episode after Ravenswood.